You all set? All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order Woodstock's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for November 17th, 2022, whatever time you're having me. It's fine. We'll do designation of alternates. I believe we only need one alternate. And to be consistent, because we do have a public hearing, we did seat an alternate. I believe, if I'm correct, that would mean seating Dwight Michaels. And we'll note that for the record. And I'll also note that Dean Gould and Nancy Frazier told me they would be unable to attend tonight. That takes us to Pledge of Allegiance. Oh yeah, let me just do roll call first, realize. Do you mind starting us out?
Mark Joseph Atalanta. Sid Rogers.
Jeff Gordon.
Jeffrey Marcotte.
Joe Palulik.
And we have David Morse.
David Morse.
Doug Porter.
Doug Porter.
Mike Reinowitz.
Here.
Right, we have everybody. Now we can do the pledge.
Allegiance to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do our quick AV check. David, Doug, Dwight, you can hear us? Fine.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, good. So the owl device is working. That's good. My reports, I'll keep some of mine relatively quick. My usual thank yous to commissioners for meeting twice a month. And my thank yous as well to staff for the work that gets done, not just at meetings, but all the stuff that has to get done in between meetings. And thank you as well to Amy for doing our meeting minutes. I appreciate that. I'll also note that at the upcoming town meeting on December 6th, the commission's proposed update to the land use fee ordinance will come up. I will not be able to attend. I'm actually going to be out of town. I do ask if anyone else as commissioners could attend and represent the commission. I know what we're proposing is straightforward updates in the wording to streamline some of the wording and the process of how we handle certain things. But I can always give people a little cheat sheets on it. But if we could have some folks from the commission there in case there's any questions, that would be helpful. We did approve that update previously with the input of the lawyer. The Board of Selectmen reviewed it and also likewise approved for it to go to town meeting. So thank you. And then we are going to be putting together for January. There are several provisions from that big monster bill that got passed by the legislature that did make some changes to zoning laws, including us now having to keep track of training, which wouldn't be too difficult for us to do the training. We do it anyway. But we'll be setting that stuff up so that way we have something that will be recorded in the office as far as when we do whatever training type stuff. And I know we had asked Rich Roberts previously to let us know that it was every 2 years, that right? That land use law seminar is that every 2 years, yeah. About where that's a big all day thing, which is very helpful. If that would qualify, if we were to attend it, be a continuing education, and he thought it would, but there's a lot of that stuff that has to be sorted out. So just to let you know that come January, we'll be starting to have to keep a list by law. So that will be dealt with, and we'll continue to let you guys know about any of the sessions that would qualify. So if you want to do a lot of them by Zoom, so it makes it easier to do. So we'll get that accordingly. That's all that I have. We have citizens' comments. If there's any comments from any members of the public, not on anything on the agenda, however. That takes us to meeting minutes. We have October 20th, 2022 monthly business meeting, November 3rd, 2022 special meeting. What is the will of the commission?
Did this include the November 17th meeting also or not? Are we voting on those also or not?
That's tonight.
The 17th is tonight meeting. but
Meeting that
We're
we're-
voting on the
All right.
October 20th and the
All
November
right,
3rd.
I got my dates mixed
Yeah,
up.
those are the two
Gotcha.
that we have before us, so. And so who seconded it? Okay. So motion by Young, seconded by Blackmer to approve the October 20th and the November 3rd meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Or edits? Hearing none, I'll go through the roll. Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Mark Blackmer.
Aye.
Sid Blodgett.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, I'll vote aye. Jeff Markot.
Aye.
David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Plulik.
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
And last but not least, Timothy Young.
Aye.
So without objection, that so passes. I will note once again that Mimi has an unbroken record of meeting minutes approved. Congratulations.
Must be getting close to steak knives.
What?
She must be getting close to that set of steak knives.
Yeah, the grand prize. All right, so those are approved and those will get sorted out. This is our annual business meeting that we're required to do since it's not a town election year. We do this in November. So I'll go through in in the order that it's listed. We have election of officers. We do have 3 officer positions that we have for our bylaws. So I'll open it up for chair. Is there a nomination for chair?
Nominate Jeffrey Gordon.
Is there a second?
Second.
Let me mark this down here. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the nominations. We'll go through the roll for that. Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Mark Blackmer.
Aye.
Sid Blodgett.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, I'll vote aye. Jeff Markot.
Aye.
David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Palula.
Aye.
And Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
And Timothy Young.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the honor for doing it. I've been happy to do it for 14 years now, so I look forward to the 15th. But I enjoy being chair also because I get to work with you guys, so thank you. That takes us to vice chair. Is there a nomination for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Jeff Markot.
Is there a second?
I'll second that as well.
Okay. Any other nominations? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close nominations. I'll go through the roll. The motion by Blackmer, seconded by Young, for Jeff Markot to be vice chair. Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Mark Blackmer.
Aye.
Sid Blodgett.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon. Aye. Jeff Markot.
Aye.
David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Palula.
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
And Timothy Young.
Aye.
Congratulations, Jeff. So now I can stop showing up at meetings and you can just take over.
See how that works out.
Then the last position we have is secretary. That's the last of the officer positions we have. Is there a motion for secretary?
Nominate Dave Morse. Second.
And that was you. Tim. So motion by Markot, seconded by Young, to nominate David Morse to be secretary. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none and seeing none, I'll go through the roll. Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Mark Blackmer.
Aye.
Sid Blodgett.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon. Aye. Jeff Markot.
Aye.
David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Palula.
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
Timothy Young.
Aye.
Congratulations, David. You're going to throw a big party?
Probably not.
You were hoping if we made him secretary, but so. Those are all the officer positions. Congratulations, everybody. We have approval of our meeting dates. We're required to submit dates for 2023 and also for January of 2024. This did go out by via email, or it was also in the meeting packet. I forget. I know it went out. So, but these are the proposed ones that we do submit. We can certainly change dates and cancel if we so need to. These are not locked in stone, even though we do try to follow a certain pattern. But otherwise, we do have to submit something, and we do technically have to approve it. Once they're approved, I will submit them to the town clerk's office, so they have it on file. But what is the wish of the commission?
Move to approve them.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is that you, Mark? Yes. So seconded by Young, a motion by Young, seconded by Blackner to approve the schedule as so proposed. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the schedule? Hearing none, I'll go through the roll. Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Mark Blackmer.
Aye.
Sid Logic.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Markot.
Aye.
David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Palula.
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
And Timothy Young.
Aye.
That is so passed. I will submit this. We also look to try to schedule the annual legal training session. I think we've been doing them in April, if I remember. I think we've been doing it in the spring. We do try to schedule, usually we'll schedule or offer a date to the town attorney with a backup date. Normally, we do it in lieu of one of the planning meetings that we have. I don't know which month we would wish to do it on, in which case I will then ask Attorney Roberts what might work for him. Did we want to stick with, I think April was when we last did it. If that works for people.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll ask him. And if he's not able to, then we can always come up with another date, but I'll ask him.
For April 13th.
Yes.
Right, okay, not the second.
It would be this, yeah, just because when we're trying to avoid some holidays.
Yep.
And so since the first Thursday technically falls on Passover, we want to make certain everyone can attend, including any members of the public. So that's why it was suggested to be moved to the second Thursday. So I'll ask him to see about that date. We can send an email to him and we can ask him about the April 13th. He knows the routine. And he can let us know. So we will, it's the usual 7:30 time. Thank you. We don't have to vote on that since it's already a meeting we're going to have scheduled. We'll just note it that it's our annual legal training section, but it's still listed as, it'll be listed as a special meeting for purposes of with the town clerk. Every year, we're required to review the bylaws. We don't have to make changes. The last time we made changes, which were substantive ones, actually, I remember that meeting, was back in 2018. We do keep a running list of what we've done. So in 19 and in 20 and in 21, we reviewed without changes. We're not required to vote on the review of the bylaws. It's something that we're noted to do. Certainly, if someone has anything relative to the bylaws they feel should be changed, certainly let us know. The process we tend to follow would be that we work on a bylaws change, and then we want to give commissioners time to digest it, and we bring it back at the next regularly scheduled business meeting. There wasn't anything that I had in my notes about changes to the bylaws to propose. Otherwise, unless there's anything that anyone wishes to raise about the bylaws. Joe?
Just a quick comment on Article 10, order of business, suggesting not to change the bylaws, but to add to our agenda the second citizen comment section, which is outlined in the bylaws for the order of business. And we've had it in the past, and I guess it just dropped off. But just to put it on the agenda, so we're consistent with the bylaws.
No, and that's a good point. Somewhere along the line, I honestly don't remember, it fell off for some reason. I don't know why. But we'll put it back on. That's for our monthly meetings.
Right.
So I'll make a note to put it back on. I keep a draft of the meeting minutes, so when we prepare this meeting minutes, I already have a draft for next month. I'll add into that draft the second citizens' comments. And that way we'll have it in. But thank you, Joe, for pointing that out. We should put it back in.
And just one minor update was the numbering. Article 10 is the order of business, and there is a second Article 10 called hearings. So it's just changing the numbering article.
But we put that in specifically to see if you would find it. And you did. So
So
congratulations.
all the subsequent ones need to be just renumbered. That's all.
What I'll do is, that is a good point. We will change that. So what I'll do is, I don't know if I sent you the Word copy, if it was the PDF. I have the Word copy if I didn't send it to you. And then we'll just change that number. But yes, I'll make a note of it here. And then what we'll do is I will send out the corrected, the fixed copy, and I will put in without objection on the last page under dates that we reviewed it on this date. So that way that reflects the review date. Did you have something, Sid? Okay. Anything from anybody else? So we'll note that's so reviewed, we'll make that stuff. Changing the format number does not require a vote, since that's just a clerical item. Unless there's an objection to that. So we'll so go accordingly. Thank you. And I need to make certain before we go on the public hearing, it is past 7:45. We can actually go to public hearing. So I'm just going to state a few rules for public hearing. If you were here last month, you probably heard me say what I'm going to say tonight, which is public hearing is the opportunity for commissioners, staff, members of the public to speak and be heard. When we close the public hearing, we cannot receive anything more, including any further written comments or anything from the public, even from staff or commissioners. So there is some formality to the public hearing. Welcome you all here tonight. You're not required to speak. Certainly would recognize you if you do wish to speak. I do ask that if you've already spoken at our last meeting and you have something that you wish to speak with us about, please make certain something additional or new. We do very much note and remember what was brought to us last meeting. This is still the same public hearing in legal terms. I'll recognize people for the first time to speak for 5 minutes, and then if someone wishes to be recognized a second time, I'll rule in order if there's something additional. If it's the same thing you wish to speak with us about just because of the function of time and wanting to make certain we can hear from anybody who wishes to be heard, it really would be second time to speak would be something new. And we usually grant that 2 minutes, although I try to be flexible with that as best as I can. If you do have any questions that you wish to ask, I just ask that you direct them to to me as chair, and then we can go accordingly. This is being recorded, audio. This is being recorded, audio visual as well. So we do ask that when you speak, just make certain that we let just one person speak, so that way we can hear and record it, but also state your name for the record, so that way we know who is saying what. I will go to the stopwatch feature so I can keep track of things. Otherwise, if we were to close tonight's meeting, it's still a public meeting. It will just be only for commissioners to speak, and then we deliberate and decide based upon what has been presented, discussed during public hearing. All the documents that we entered into the record already for the public hearing remain in the public record. So if you have already sent us in something prior, that is already noted. We do have some new documents. We have phase 1 and phase 2 plans from the town of Woodstock. I believe that was emailed out. Do we have 50 copies? I don't know if everybody has them. Do you have them?
Mr. Schwan has.
Oh, you do? Okay. So if there's any commissioners that don't have have a printed copy, we can get a printed copy.
Yeah. I need a copy.
Okay. Thank you,
Any members
Mr.
of the
First
public?
Selectman.
Or can I speak?
Sure.
Or members of the public also? You need,
Yes, please. I saw it on the email.
Can you guys, David, Doug, Dwight, can you see what's shared on the screen?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so also on the town website, it's also available. All documents that we receive in time get posted.
anyone else?
And we'll also be showing it up on the screen. So we'll note that for the record. We also have documents, I believe it's from 2010, Delia, about when the commission approved a dry hydrant installation
Anybody? Yes.
on Center Cemetery Road. So the documents are, I know Delia had emailed stuff out. They're also, I believe, posted up.
Yep.
So there's a lot of pages to it, so we'll note that for the record as well. We'll also note that we received a letter correspondence from Maureen Nordman, November 7th. I believe that's,
all.
yep. And we also received a letter from Charles Kaiser, November 15th. I don't know if that's going to go up.
Yep.
I don't have any other documents that I'm noting for the record right now. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, the town ordinance that dictates for us as this commission to have to review and improve any type of improvement on a scenic road, and including the working document that this commission, Board of Selectmen, and the Town Highway Department approved back in, I think, 2011. Still are in the record, so we'll go accordingly.
Yeah.
I don't know if John Navarro was able to be with us tonight. Okay. So we do have, we had asked to get some plans. We did receive 2 pages. One is phase 1 and one is listed as phase 2 with regards to what has been discussed already. But he's not here, but we can still, we'll still note it up there. I don't know, Delia, if there's anything from a staff perspective from your point of view with it, but we were talking about one aspect of this was by the cemetery about the dealing with the road there, and then also what to do with the grass area up to the stone wall. And level that for parking and also for the catch basins, and then to widen the fire truck pull-off. There is a dry hydrant there. There is a pull-off, but the fire services have mentioned that they would prefer to have a bigger pull-off so they can get the tanker truck there safely, do what the tanker truck needs to do, be able still to have access up and down the road during an emergency situation. So these are the plans that we did receive, and that's phase 1, and phase 2 was a bit higher up the road with regards to the double chip sealing and, you know, dealing with cleaning and the roadside ditches. Those are actually just under maintenance, not so much improvements, but also it's listed where the existing culverts are. And that also shows the where the dry hydrant sits in the pond and the widening area for that. So those are the 2 phases, 2 parts that we've been discussing. I'll first open it up to commissioners, and then I'll open it up to members of the public. I know John's here, but I didn't know if there was.
John is not here.
Okay.
But
I didn't know if there was anything as you as first selectman wanted to.
I will just reiterate, because we have some new faces here tonight. I was approached originally by people with the commission for the cemetery. Their concern was erosion, issues around the wall, issues around trees, and safety. And that is people that are at the cemetery for services, complaints from various funeral homes where they have to back in the hearse and the hearses are bottoming out. That's due to the erosion. Also, general safety, if folks go to visit loved ones that are in the cemetery, safety of them being able to park, but more importantly, walking on uneven ground to get into the cemetery. And that's how it came about. I talked to John, he and I went up and looked at it. I don't know if there's folks here from the Cemetery Commission. Are any of you from? No, okay. So anyway, and again, these drawings were asked of John at the last meeting if he could provide schematics. So that's about where we're at.
Thank you. I'll open it up to commissioners. Any questions or comments? Joe Adaletta.
Yeah, just a question from this drawing. I believe at the last meeting, John Navarro was talking about part of the advantage of working around the cemetery driveway. The work would be that there'd be room for cars to park outside the stone wall parallel to Center Cemetery. So that was the impression that I got.
Yes.
Yes.
You talk, if you look on phase one,
Yes,
down by the cemetery, yeah,
well, how does that asphalt ditch impact the ability?
there is no asphalt.
No, on the drawing, it's proposing that, proposed hot mix
It's,
ditch line.
yeah, with the Cape Cod curving, that's basically to build it up so that it can be leveled off and seated, but the Cape Cod curve is something you can drive over.
But the ditch is,
It is there, and that's the drainage that goes by.
okay, I was just wondering if a car could actually go over that. There's a ditch and a curve and then.
Yes, but that was the curbing. So there would be a ditch, but you can walk over the curb to park in the grass. The way people are now is they get out, for instance, if I was to pull heading north, my passenger gets out and they've got to drop into the ditch, as opposed to if I can get the vehicle off closer to the wall, they can get off on level ground on the other side of the.
Yeah, that sounded like a good idea, just to be able to park a little more easily near the cemetery, but then I was just a little unsure about how the ditch and the Cape Cod curve would impact the ability to park.
The curb would be on one side of the ditch, so you get the ditch for drainage
Okay.
and the curb, but the curb would be such that you'd be able to drive over it to park.
Park on the grass.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tim?
I guess the only question I have is, because this is being put into 2 phases, and the biggest concern and what started it all was the cemetery, and that's where the steepest hill is, and, the drainage issues are and so forth. If we were to look at phase 1 and maybe a revision in phase 2, which there seems to be a lot of concern, the chip seal up further. I don't think people are gonna race up one hill but not down the other. Is that something that would address this immediate problem? And then up around the corner, maybe doing a revised program of redoing some of the ditches and dealing with the hydrants, but not necessarily chip sealing the upper portion. Is that a possibility to revise that program to kind of meet everybody in the middle?
I can't speak for John, but I think so. I think the reason he came up with phase 2 is that the issue is at the cemetery, but the reason the issue is there is that road and all of the rain, snow, whatever, mud season, it all flows down, and because of the grade of that road, it creates more problems down by the cemetery. I think that's why it went into the phase 2. Could it be changed other than what's on this drawing? I believe so, but again, I can't speak for John.
Mr. Chairman, could you put the phase 2 back up on the screen for us to see, please? Thank you.
And just to follow up what you said, Tim, if one were to go with phase 1, would that give an opportunity to see if phase 2 is needed, or what changes might be needed with phase 2 potentially? Is that an option? As I know the Center Cemetery Association kickstarted this. And I'm aware that there are some things that are looking to be addressed with the road. seems that there's been a number of folks who aren't necessarily opposed to that area by the cemetery per se, but what to do with chip sealing all the rest of the road. And I guess John would have to be the one to answer that, I guess, that if one did phase one, would one then see what that solves, what that does, and then decide if phase two is really needed, or does phase two need to be changed in any way? Because there are two phases to this.
Well, there seemed to be some concern with some of the farm water was coming in, it's going around the corner, so that should address that as well. So once you go around the corner, the water is somewhat minimized. So, is there some natural things that can be done to kind of figure that problem up there and then focus on basically what's happening from the top of the hill down?
And I do notice on phase two is listed for the dry hydrant, which can certainly be done separate from anything else on phase two. They're proposing to widen the area that's already there, and they have a dimension, I believe, to make it around 10 feet wider, 50 to 60 feet longer to accommodate the trucks that need to be there, but also to draft from the hydrant, but also then to get up and down that road. We did approve that initial pull off in the dry hydrant, and Delia had provided us from all the stuff from 2010, which I do actually remember our discussion on that. So I don't think we have to. But it was more about approving the dry hydrant there. So even if one were to go with phase one, it would seem to me that separate from anything else in phase two, dealing with better access for that dry hydrant and for safety concerns up and down that road, heaven forbid we have to have emergency vehicles there, would make sense to do. So that wouldn't seem to be any major impact upon the road or anything else there. So this is an existing functional dry hydrant for safety. Sid, did you have something?
Yeah, I did. Thank you. I'm just not concerned that paving a majority of the road is the right solution. It's actually the water that's causing the problem. And as somebody spoke at our last meeting, the way the road is graded, it creates these small berms on the gravel. So the water is even getting through them into the grass swales being treated. I think you've probably all seen it staying on the road, channelizing, going down that full length from Mr. Kaiser's house, and then having a significant problem down by County Road. It also appeared, based on what we heard 2 weeks ago, most of the residents aren't too thrilled about the idea of paving the road.
Just ask that people please don't make any comments. Thank you. No.
They're citing safety concerns, is mostly what I'm hearing. I've lived on dirt roads, and I'm aware, I've dealt with mud, and I've seen what happens when it gets paved. But the volume of traffic increases, so you have more cars going up and down that newly paved road. And secondly, they're on average driving at a higher speed. So Joe Avaletta had a good point at our last meeting from, minutes. He made a point about why can't we just pave the first 500 feet in from County Road? And I thought that was a great idea. With all this uncertainty and some opposition, some support too, why don't we just take a small step or two in the right direction? Pave that bottom, you don't have to go 500 feet. I think the cemetery only goes up 350 feet or so. Pave up to there, maybe just the entrance, do this other work, which I think we're all agreeing to that John asked for, and that was in the minutes too. Remove the dying and dead ash trees, add the 2 catch basins, extend the apron, reshape the road. But then significantly limit the paving is what I would suggest at this point. And, see where it goes from there. From the town's perspective, understand that there are costs to both. There's higher maintenance if you leave this gravel, and that costs time and materials. It also costs money to pave a road. And I think certainly this kind of road, it's not going to be hands off. We don't ever have to go out there. we're all concerned about taxes and money and stretching dollars thin, and why not just pave a couple hundred feet instead of a couple thousand?
Thank you, Sid. And as was mentioned at the last meeting, taking down the dead trees that are in the town's right of way does not need our approval. That's just part of maintenance that the town can do anytime it feels it needs to do for that. Delia, did you have something? Then I'll check online.
Yes, I wanted to clarify, you said, did you mean chip seal or paving? Because they're not the same thing.
Whatever term.
Chip sealing, I think, is what it's being proposed.
John did say that the one with hot mix, I think the first 80 feet, so yeah.
That's like an apron.
That's
what
the
he was
apron.
proposing. But the rest he was proposing chip seal.
So I'm sorry, Chip, hot mix is your typical asphalt? Okay.
So that'll be.
Sid, that's correct. Hot mix would be an asphalt product. Chip seal is a liquid emulsion with stone on top of it, so it would look like a gravel driveway. And if you look at the phase 1 map, you'll see that they're only calling for a hot mix on the apron and then up the side on the cemetery side. And that's pretty much to lock in the catch basins that would be added, and also to be able to lock in the Cape Cod curb. You need something to hold that curbing in place. Backside of the Cape Cod curbing would be backfilled, which the first selectman was talking about earlier, would be, able to back over that into the cemetery or cars to drive in as needed. The Cape Cod is not as aggressive as the typical DOT 6-inch style curbing that you see on the highways or on state roads. So the chip seal, I have the tendency to agree with Tim Young. I think that the first phase of this project, we should look at that and consider that. I think that this is where a lot of the trouble lies on that road. And then, maybe in regard to phase 2, maybe some, ditch cleaning and some riprap, and cross pipe inspection, might be an answer up there.
Thank you, Dwight. Did you have anything else, Sid?
No thanks.
Okay. Anything from any other commissioners? Joe Pula?
Yeah, in order to better conform with the state stormwater recommendations, couple details. One is we should use 15-inch minimum size culverts. And he's got 12-inch down here. So I'd strongly recommend at least 15-inch pipe. And then the other thing is with the new catch basins, to put in deep sumps. In other words, the bottom section of the precast concrete would be the 4-foot sections rather than the 2-footers. And that'll provide a lot more storage for any gravel that continues to come down the side of the road. So again, 15-inch pipe and 4-foot sumps.
It's a good observation, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Jeff Markcott?
I am, it's my opinion that the scenic nature of the road is very scenic. And I would like it to stay the way it is, very scenic. Jean Pillow had a nice presentation at our last meeting. She recommended some rolling dips, which I would affectionately call a thank you, ma'am. Water bar. Does anybody know the thank you, ma'am term? I'll tell everybody that doesn't know.
Like nuts.
And back in the old days, when there were horse and wagons, horse would pull the wagon up and we get to that spot that was essentially a water bar or a rolling dip. And the horse would get a little break because it would roll back down. The horse would say, thank you, Mr. Ed would talk to the horse. I think that if we put those, well, I shouldn't say we, if the rolling dips were put in, or the thank you names, with swales from the end of those into the grass swales, that would alleviate a lot of the water problem that there is there now. And it would certainly preserve the character of the scenic road. Phase two, I don't even want to touch upon. I just think we should concentrate on phase one, as that was the initial reason that we're having this meeting, so.
Thank you. I'll mention again, even though I still think that whatever we do about phase two or not about phase two, we should still address what's being suggested relative to that dry hydrant. That is an emergency safety issue, public safety issue. The fire services are telling us, and the fire marshal and the applicable fire chief have both told us. Put in there in the day for the pull off for that dry hydrant, and that's a functional dry hydrant by the pond. That if they're suggesting that we make the pull off a bit bigger to better accommodate their vehicles that they're going to need to draft that water and still be able then to get their big trucks up and down that road, or any ambulances, even in the middle of the night or in bad weather, heaven forbid. Even though that's supposed to be phase two, I kind of consider that part of phase one, because to me, that's a public safety item that we shouldn't ignore, even though it's listed under phase two now. So I think, the comment we got from the fire marshal was very clear about the need for that. And we had discussions in 2010 to approve the placement of the dry hydrant. It was clear at that time that it was a public safety matter that needed to be addressed. Certainly the dry hydrant was needed, and the access to it. So to me, I'm kind of putting that all into phase one in a sense, because it's, in my opinion, I think it's a no-brainer to want to deal with the better access and use of that dry hydrant. What the fire service is telling us their need is. Joe, did you have something?
Yeah, just one I wanted to from the overall phase two aspect. But then on phase one, I'd be more inclined to just take a look at doing the apron with the asphalt and the chip sealing up to that, just past that first cat, or starting from County Road, looks like the fourth catch basin. On the drawing, it's right above the R of Center Road. So if people are looking at the drawing, that's where another catch basin is. Just doing the chip sealing of the main road up to that point. And leaving the rest of the road as is, unless there's strong support for doing the chip sealing by residents of the road. I know the highway department is in support of it, and the town is probably in support of it. But I'd also like to get a sense of the residents who have to travel on that, live on that, or either strongly supportive of chip sealing or trying to maintain the road as best as possible.
Or you're saying that as a minimum of the chip seal, at least basically at the end of the, just above the cemetery.
Just above the cemetery up to here, catch basin. Yeah.
Which would also be, you're saying, towards where the end of that is, where they're going to be putting the asphalt mix on the side there.
Correct. If you can see, there's a catch basin at the
So kind of where, up to there, you're saying, not
the
to
chip
go
seal.
up
Not to go
higher.
up to the curb. Curb to the corner.
Joe, may I ask what you're proposing is so the chip seal would stop before the two landscape drains?
I don't think so. It'd be, you're saying the landscape drains where you.
Yeah, they're up on the corner. So your chip seal would actually stop way down, like just past the asphalt where the catch basins are going to be?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Like where
That's
the
what I'm
little hand is
suggesting.
on the image.
Dwight, you're referring to the landscape
Oh, I
basin,
see.
you're way up there past the curb, you see there?
Yeah,
There's one there and there's another one below. I don't
I-
know if John was proposing chip sealing way up there in order to help deal with those
It says limited.
Right.
so-
Yeah, that's his limit is just past those, Mr. Chairman. The only problem is then there might be an issue with those landscape drains, because what'll happen is gravel and sand will wash into those. They'll probably fill up pretty quick.
And that was gonna be my follow-up question was if it were to be limited, how is that affecting all the rest of the stuff on that road relative to what John Navarro is proposing to fix? So Dwight, you're saying that if one doesn't chip seal up there, that those landscape basins may then become problematic or non-functional if they start filling up and clogging up?
Correct.
I mean-
They would probably fill up every time there was a rainstorm.
So,
Can someone describe that a little bit more then, what a landscape drain is?
Dwight, did you want to let us know and remind us of your credentials?
I'm the Director of Public Works for the town of Vernon. In regard to Joe's question, landscape drain, instead of a big catch basin like John's proposing down by the cemetery, landscape drain is probably about 10 inches in diameter and has a smaller grade top on it and usually sits off the side of the road and into the grassy area a little bit more, is less visible, more hidden. And they usually take a smaller amount of water. You'll see them in golf courses and parks, other areas like that. I know there's a couple on East Quasit up on the 90-degree turn. They're nice and handy, and they're a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. But in a case where it was on a dirt road, I think they'd probably be filled up with gravel pretty quick. They'd require a lot more attention.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Houston?
I just wanted to ask what is the role of the landscape plans?
Okay. Anything else from commissioners? Did I miss any commissioners online? I'll recognize members of the public. If you've already spoken at last meeting, I just ask that you speak to something new. And you have to limit people to 5 minutes. Sir, can you please state your name for the record? Do you have
Charles.
something new to let us know?
Yes. Charles
Okay.
Kaiser, 45 Central Cemetery Road. I have a number of points to make, but I want to address these landscape drains first. John Navarro and I walked the full length of phase 1 and half of phase 2, because most of it's on our property. It's through our property. And I showed them how water is being directed off the big hill on our farm away from Center Cemetery. Some water is still coming down our driveway because it's an impermeable surface. And it hugs, the side of the road and the roads there. So we talked about, how can we get this water back into the swale? Since our driveway is paved, asphalt paved, he suggested a landscape drain at the corner into a conduit culvert and redirecting it back into the swale below the first barway into our hayfield. So it wouldn't interfere with the tractor traffic. That's one landscape drain. The other one was at the top of the hill on this road. And that was to direct water off our front yard and across the road and get back into the swale on the other side of the road. And that's the high point on the road. Everything in phase 2 is more or less level until you get to 130 Center Cemetery. But he agreed. We need to get the water off the road back into the swales where it was, which was the case 3 years ago. But, with the big rains here, he eroded the base of the road down a number of inches, creating these berms, which just channels the water down the road and erodes more. So, and that was a purpose. And we saw, these drains could be positioned so they wouldn't be receiving gravel. One would be on our, the end of our paved driveways, so we would be getting gravel upstream of that. And the other was at the high point on the road, so it shouldn't be getting gravel either. And these drawings are more or less what, John and I, conceived as we were walking the road here. And, my big concern is drainage. And I think once we fix the drainage, less gravel is going to be moving around the road. And so I really don't want to see double chip seal come up to our driveway. People may feel like they want to take a turn to the right, come up our driveway, or go too fast. And John and I also talked about the need to keep this road real narrow, not to make it look like a super highway, a real two-lane road. But some of those issues or concerns, dimensions aren't done out here. So I just want, so I really wanted to address the drainage, and maybe that would take care of the need to, double chip seal the road or do some other paving thing. And that's why in my letter, I propose we do this in a phased development, deal with all the drainage issues first, see what happens. If the gravel is still moving, then we can come back in this sort of setting and decide where we go from there. So, maybe gravel geogrid that the Conservation Commission proposed, or maybe double chip seal or something else, if that's needed. But really, I wanted the drainage addressed, and I went back and looked at the letters from the fire department, and they were in favor of the double chip seal because that solved their primary concern, which was the safety issue due to poor drainage, which was affecting the base of the road. But I think if you address the drainage first, well, the road might be able to take care of itself. And I just want to remind you that
I'm just going to give you the 5-minute warning, but I'll
Yeah.
give you another
Okay.
minute just to wrap up.
all the residents on the road really want to maintain, the scenic character, the gravel nature. Their concern is about drainage. But people like to see that fixed and not necessarily go ahead with this double chip seal paving.
Thank you. I think you had your
Hi, I'm
hand up.
Priscilla
and then
Gunnis. Oh, I'm sorry. Priscilla
Yep, thank
Gunnis.
you.
I'm not a resident of Woodstock. Can I speak anyways?
This is a public meeting. Yep,
Okay.
give you the 5 minutes.
I have a relative that lives on that road, so I've been down it, and I love that farm and that area and the drive up to there. Loved it for a decade and a half. So this is a matter of an area of outstanding natural beauty. Thank you, Sid and Jeffrey, for discussing that. I think that it's not only the most beautiful scenery, the view and the fields, not only the most beautiful scenery in Woodstock, but also Eastern Connecticut, probably New England, and probably nationally. So I am begging you to keep that dirt. And, I read the notes. Okay, a little tiny cemetery, 40 people's getting wet. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And the wetlands are getting wet. They're supposed to be wet. There's the issue of safety. Okay. No one's ever been stuck. Mrs. Kaiser has told me no one's ever been stuck there. I don't even have that much traffic. I can understand people's concerns. If you really cared about getting stuck, the dirt and the mud happened just past number 103, right after 115. Chip that. Nobody cares. And chip is ugly too. I know you're trying to pacify us by saying, oh, it's just chip seal. Well, it still looks ugly. And your job is to help the residents of Woodstock have the best life possible. And, maintaining the beauty and the beautiful scenery does that. My last point is it raises the value of the homes. Everybody knows Woodstock's beautiful, Concord's beautiful. And I really would not destroy that. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being here. Can you please state your name for the record?
Karen Donovan. Can I have a question of Mr. Kaiser?
Through me, you can. That'll be part of your 5 minutes.
Okay,
What question do you have?
it sounded like they got to some agreement that of a different approach than what is in front of us right now. And I thought that maybe he was going to be here to address that. will it be in the public record that he will actually address that proposed change to phase one? It sounded like Mr. Navarro was in agreement with it and that it was a better alternative to what this was.
I'll just ask you, sir, was what is being presented up here, is that something different that you and Mr. Navarro?
No, not substantially, no.
You said not substantially. Was there something additional or
Yeah, he
different than
agreed
what
the
we have?
drainage is important, and that's why the two
Just one person at a
landscape
time.
drains came in to redirect water back into the soils.
So it was first deal with the landscaping and the drainage, then talk about the chip seal after that.
The chip seal was part of this phase. My issue was drainage.
Okay.
and He addressed it.
Got it. Got it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else who wishes to speak? Yes, did you speak at the last meeting?
I did.
Do you have something new to provide us?
Yes, I do.
Just please state your name for the record.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Elizabeth Crampton from 103 Center Cemetery. I actually had a chat with one of our neighbors who lives past phase two. His name is Brian Griffin. And so I'm just speaking for him because he didn't get a chance to come and speak. Oh, you're here. Sorry. Okay, well then, different, I'll just say I really appreciate everything that I've heard from the board. You're listening to us. I love your creative ideas. And also I think that the town of Woodstock is doing an excellent job maintaining the road. So I'll let Mike speak for himself.
Thank you for being here tonight. Anybody else who wishes to speak? Yes, did you speak last time?
I did not.
You did not? Okay, well, just please state your name for the record.
Brian Griffin. I live at 164 Center Cemetery Road. I've been a resident on the road since 2003. And I just wanted to speak in terms of both phases. I'm very concerned about the idea of paving 2/3 of the road. It was brought up earlier, but I see it as a safety issue. Paving the road will bring more traffic through, higher speeds, and ultimately impact, the quality of life of those of us on the road. I really like to talk about exploring other issues to reestablish or improve drainage before we did something as extreme as paving 2/3 of it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Yes, please.
Yes, Ray Morgan, resident of Woodstock. Live on a scenic road. So being part of Woodstock and the whole scenic road, I just can't express that, how important that is. And part of Woodstock, you get a scenic road. You can only asphalt scenic road, but once you asphalt, you have to see a road, somebody peel the asphalt back up and get a scenic road back. So once you give up a scenic road, you must, like I said, I've never seen it get it back. So I would make that your last resort to pave, chip, or do a scenic road. Because like you said, once you lose it, that's all part of the Woodstock and the whole living up here and doing that. Second thing I seen on your phase two, you have that dry hydrant. I'm not sure why that's just not taken care of. It can be in public safety and put it on a phase and bowling. You said it's been a while. If you have a dry hydrant, you gotta get access to it. Why hasn't it, that should just be taken care of. That can be voted on. Yeah, sure.
The ordinance does require that if there's improvements on a scenic road, it does have to be
Because of the scenic road.
correct. That's what the ordinance says.
I just didn't want to see, because they had to do the dry hydrant to get chip seal or something like that in there to get to it. That's it. I just, express the importance of scenic road.
Thank you. Yes, the ordinance does spell out that if there's improvements on a scenic road, we have to go through a public hearing and the planning and zoning has to decide. We did come up with a working document back in 2011 with the Board of Selectmen, with the Highway Department to spell out what's maintenance that doesn't come to us, for example, cutting down a dead tree in the town right away versus an improvement, which like is chip seal. If there's something that has to happen for an emergency reason, during an emergency for safety, then the town does that. Doesn't wait for us to hold a hearing. But in order to have put that dry hydrant in with the pull off, that originally did require an approval, and it was part of a scenic road public hearing. And to widen it does, per ordinance, require a vote. this. And I had mentioned again, I'll mention again that I think doing that with the fire hydrant should be taken out of phase two and just put in with anything that's done. Because to me, it's a no-brainer to do it, especially for public safety. The fire services are saying that they need that now compared to what they needed in 2010. Certainly, I'm going to respect their opinion. They're the ones that are going to be out there in the middle of the night having to make certain they can get their trucks to draft from that dry hydrant if there's an emergency. So that seems a no-brainer to me. Did you have something, Jay?
Yeah, the reason the dry hydrant is on phase two is phase two addresses the upper part of that road, which is the location of the dry hydrant. I think that's a dead issue. It's going to be done. And it's not a matter of phase two, phase one. It happens to be on the particular map that talks about phase two. My other concern is we're throwing words around like asphalt, paving, chip sealing. I'm concerned that people are getting confused on those words, on what they mean. And Delia mentioned it before about paving versus chip sealing, and now asphalt you mentioned. I just want to make sure that people understand what we're talking about. And I know originally for the commissioners, there were photographs shared of other roads in town that were chip sealed, there were photographs of Center Cemetery Road and that sort of thing. So I don't want people to be confused because they're three very different things: chip sealing, paving, and asphalt.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public who wishes to speak? Yes, please. Can you state your name for the record?
Yep, Rose Watt. I spoke last time, but I do something new. And that's that I do know what chip sealing is, and I bought on a dirt road, so I want to live on a dirt road. It sounds like most of my neighbors agree. But the chip sealing is abrasive, and we have a lot of folks who bike on that road, a lot of folks from the surrounding areas who walk on that road. And no one in this room can say without a doubt that folks wouldn't speed if it was a smoother surface. Like logically, we all know that folks can speed on a smoother surface. And on phase two, sounds like most folks are kind of aware that that's, maybe something that's going to be looked at later on. But I do want to point out something that, if you live on the road, you have insight into that curve on phase two where the chip sealing stops. That's a very narrow area of the road with ditches on either side. And a major concern of mine would be that folks speed around that corner because it's an area where I've almost been hit several times. So I think now seeing the plans that Mr. Navarro has shared with us, I am certainly concerned about chip sealing because I do feel like folks would speed even quicker around that narrow curve, but there's really no place to pull aside even for another car coming. So I see that as like a major concern with phase two that just, it's kind of just up there on the map that chip sealing stops like right in the middle of that curve. I think that's very dangerous and endangering things to do.
Thank you. I also want to make sure I'm not missing anybody on virtual here. Let's see anybody's virtual hands up or otherwise raising their hands here. Anything else from the members of the public? Yes, sir. Thank you for coming today.
115 Center Cemetery. When I pull out my driveway, when I go right, it's really pretty decent. When I go left, that's where most of the issues are, but really it's drainage. Everything is muddy. Right there where that dry hydrant is, mud season, there's no way a fire truck's getting through that. It's gonna sink. It's tough to get cars through there at times. So I'm not opposed to chip sealing. I'm okay with doing whatever it takes to make the road drivable. I have a daughter who's been driving for a year. Not the best driver. I like to feel better about that at night. Going from county, my wife takes county every morning. The road needs better drainage. I don't care if the whole road's gravel. I don't care what it is, but I think something needs to be done. We can get some sort of a compromise. That's fine too. But I mean, my cars get beat up, the potholes keep coming back, they re-smooth the road, and first time it rains, those potholes show right back up. You're swerving, going all the way through the road, trying to avoid everything.
Phase one, right when you start to turn where the farm is, there always ends up cutting across, you get a big dip, mud. Yeah, I mean, something needs to be done, obviously drainage. If we can fix the drainage and that solves the problem, then I have no complaints about the road at all. I'm fine with the road. But when I come home every day, it shouldn't look like I've been out mudding. It's rough. And I called many times to have gravel put down, and they'll come out and put gravel down. I called, they re-smooth it, they did whatever they do. I feel like not having the drainage is just, the problem just keeps coming back. We don't solve it, and we're not getting anywhere. But right where that dry hydrant is, it gets super muddy.
Thank you. I think that gets to a point I would like to make. I know John isn't here tonight, so I don't want to be speaking for him, but perhaps given all these different things that are being mentioned and different things that are being mentioned also from a commission point of view, perhaps it would behoove ourselves to make certain we can have further discussion with John. He's an expert on this. He's the one that came up with the proposals. See what he has to say about what might be different ideas or solutions, things that are being discussed, what's workable, what's not workable, that type of stuff. I'm not an engineer or run a town highway department, but I think it would be helpful to hear from him as an expert, given that this is what he does, who that he supervises. See about having further discussion with him here. Also, he can hear just not our ideas, but also the additional ideas that have been raised, or concerns that have been raised, and see about what his thoughts are about what the town is currently trying to do, what the town is proposing, and what might be certain solutions that might try to address the different concerns, just not concerns raised by people who live on the road, but also concerns from overall the road itself and what's happening with drainage and things like that. If we were to want to get further input from him, we would have to continue public hearing. With that, and see if he would be available to be here. I'm just raising that out for food for thought, since there are things being discussed and ideas, and some of that I just don't know myself, but I think I would certainly would like to hear more from him. He came up with the proposal, and he's also the one that has to, just not him physically, but he's part of the crew that has to go out and fix the road and deal with the road in its current condition. So I raise that as a thought as far as to be able to further some of the discussions and ideas that are being brought up tonight. Joe?
I think that's a pretty good idea if we have the timeline available to do that. As I was going to ask, if people recall what John had spoken about for the area near the dry hydrant. The drawing says proposed widening dry hydrant, but I don't know if John was assuming it would have been chip sealed because that was part of the chip sealed area, or if he was just anticipating enlarging it with gravel as a good pull-off area for fire trucks. So I wasn't quite sure what's going to be done around the dry hydrant. I agree something needs to be done, but I'm not sure what he had.
The only thing I wrote down was he said he was proposing around 10 feet wider and around 50 to 60 feet longer, but I didn't write down if he had mentioned to us what else he was going to do.
Yeah, if he assumed the rest of the road was chip sealed, maybe he was picturing that as being chip sealed as well.
Yeah, I don't know, so that would be something to ask.
With the chip sealing on the road, what would he do for that area?
And then from our timeline, so looking at this deal here, we would have, without an extension being granted, which we can grant extensions up to no more than 65 days per state statute. We would have up to December 8th for the base number of days we're allowed by state statute to have the public hearing. And just to explain to people, these public hearings, we're following the state statute that we are required to follow. Don't advise reading it unless you want to go to sleep at night. It's dense reading. That's why we have timelines. But it does, the state grants us a certain number of days within which to have a public hearing. And then we can grant extension requests. So let's say we needed to go beyond that, we could get a request from the town and we could approve it. But there are deadlines we have to follow some of this per state statute. So that's why we're just keeping track of it. If we were to do this at our next meeting, that is what, December 1st? Would be the first Thursday. To do it, that would keep us still within that timeline to go accordingly. So is there anyone who has not had a chance to speak for the first time? Do you have something new?
Question?
Yeah.
Is there any discussion of dollars?
I do not know. We don't get into that at this commission. Our role isn't per ordinance to get into the cost of it, cost benefit of it. Our role purely per ordinance is that if there's a proposed improvement, whether it's from the town or from a private citizen, we hold the public hearing about it. We don't get into cost analysis.
So there could be a proposal out there that couldn't even be done because it's too expensive for the town to even do.
I would have to defer to Mr. Navarro. I'm assuming that if he's proposing this, he's looked into that aspect of it, because everything that gets done is a cost, including maintaining the road itself in its current condition. I don't know, but for purposes of what we're charged with as Planning and Zoning Commission, we don't get into that. It could certainly be brought up as far as overall considerations, but for us, for what we're charged to do, that's out of our jurisdiction, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
So, anyone from anyone else? Yes, please.
Hi, Jean Marcy, and I did speak at the last meeting.
You have
I was
something
just
new?
curious- I'm sorry.
You're going to have something new for us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I have a question. How is the chip seal cared for through time? Is it got oil put on it and sand like regular tar or asphalt? Or is there a different, how is that taken care of over time?
That would certainly be a question for Mr. Navarro, though I don't want to put Dwight Reinowitz on the spot, but Dwight? Are you
Just
on?
did, but Dwight, don't want to put him on the spot. Dwight?
Yeah,
There's a lot of
I'm sorry,
places
could you say
There's a
that? I
lot of
couldn't really
person
hear.
to share. So Dwight, I know, given your expertise, work that you've done in the town of Woodstock in your past life and what you're doing now and your work in Vernon, there was a question raised about how one maintains the chip seal over time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Whether one has to keep on chip sealing it or what one does to maintain it over time? Do you?
Yeah, usually chip seal lasts anywhere from, 7 to 10 years, depending on how much the road is used. That's a low traffic road. So you could probably get 7 to 10 years out of that. And then you would do another chip seal on top of that. The initial chip seals are probably going to be 3/4 inch stone with 3/8 stone on top. In the future, it'd be another layer of 3/8 stone. So you get very little buildup on the road.
Thank you, Dwight.
You're welcome.
I'll try not to put you on the spot again.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry. I just didn't hear the whole question.
Anything from anyone else? Yes, sir. Thank you for coming
Yeah.
tonight.
Hi, Bill Dykeman, 86 Center Cemetery Road. I just want to say that I called John probably 3 weeks ago. There was some, as I pulled out, as we pulled out to go to Common Road, there were some spots that were potholes. And the next day, he had someone come out, took care of them, and road's fine in that area. So I was just appreciate his response. I thought it was a good job what he had done. This is by that, by the fire plant. I'm very happy.
Thank you. And I'll restate what I stated at the last meeting. I've said this a number of times publicly. We have a really good town highway department. They do an awful lot. This is a big town, the second largest geographic size town in Connecticut. I forget how many square miles, but the amount of roads and bridges and everything else they have to maintain, all the power to them. So I'm always thankful for the job they do. They make it look easy, but I know it's not easy. So a big thank you. John's not here, but a big thank you to John and his crew for what they do. Is there anything from anybody else? Otherwise, let me just take a check here on virtual. Otherwise, it looks like in order for us to have further discussion with John and hear from him would be for us to continue the public hearing.
Move to continue the public hearing until our next meeting.
December 1st.
Yeah, I won't be there. December 1st, 7:45.
Okay.
Have until the 8th, you said?
We have until the 8th, but that's not a scheduled meeting for us. So motion made by Joe Adaletta, seconded by Jeff Marcotte, to continue this public hearing to December 1st, 2022 at 7:45 PM. Any discussion on the motion on the table? Hearing none, I'll go through the roll. Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Mark Blackmer.
Aye.
Sid Washington.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon. Aye. Jeff Marcotte. Aye. David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Kalula.
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
And last but not least, Timothy Young.
Aye.
That so passes without objection. I do want to thank everybody. This is we're continuing the public hearing again, but this is good. We value the fact that people come out, let us know their thoughts, opinions. As you can see from us as a commission point of view, we try to make certain we can listen to what people tell us and take things into consideration, what staff tells us, and take all that into consideration, and also using our own knowledge of things and common sense. So I'm always happy when people attend our meetings. If people can't attend our meetings, you're more than welcome anytime to send us communication through the zoning enforcement officer's office, the land use department. And it comes to the commission, and we do read the stuff and note it. So thank you very much. We appreciate all the input that you guys have been providing us. And we look forward to continuing the public hearing, continuing to hear from people, and also continuing to see what John Navarro and his expertise tells us with regards to some of these items that we raised tonight. You'll, Dan or Delia, you'll speak with him, give them a heads up about some of these items.
Yes.
So that way we can be aware of what was brought up tonight. So thank you. And we'll reconvene this on December 1st. Folks are more than welcome to stay for the rest of our.
I'll stay. I don't want you guys to feel bad.
And we appreciate that, Mr. First Selectman. Thank you. I also want to note, I appreciate that you dressed up for us.
I got the memo about the blue tie.
Yeah, so, well, they certainly match.
Right.
But when I wake up in the morning, I have, the Granimal system, so I match my clothes. So, or my wife tells me if I've really mismatched my clothes, which I have done on a few occasions, so she knows exactly. We have, for the rest here, we don't have any preliminary discussion, am I correct? There wasn't anything. We don't have any non-residential zoning permits. We don't have any new business item. The old business item is moot because we're continuing the public hearing. We do have stuff, I believe, that we have stuff relative to permits, zoning enforcement stuff.
I do have some numbers for you since our last meeting. With a couple addition zoning permits. I was capable of reviewing them administratively. Another for a shed. And I do have a host of permit applications that are either awaiting payment or a site plan or NDDH approval. I think we're about close to being able to provide a ledger commission's review going forward.
Okay.
But the office, I know that's an item on the agenda. The office is coming together. Developing good routines to get this information produced in the packets and online, and finding efficient ways to process.
I want to say thank you to you and Tracy for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
So it's another thing where you make it look easy, but it's not. So, but we do appreciate it and your help as CEO. And I know, Delia, you've been reviewing some of this other stuff as well. So thank you. You're not a stranger to the commission now for a while. So, but then we'll just see then at our December monthly meeting or in the December 1st meeting, are there any home occupations that you have that we would be reviewing with you, looking at?
So I have received, these are amongst the applications that are not fully complete yet.
Oh, okay.
But applications for bed and breakfast and along the lines of home occupation. I have received advice from the attorney on how to process some of these since they are in the Lake District. And he said I can follow through with my responsibilities as outlined in the zoning regulations. So
that makes sense.
Whether or not a bed and breakfast is against the deed covenant of Lake Association, I still have my role and responsibility and capacity to review it. The issue would be with the homeowner and the association.
That would be in a private matter, because we have the zoning and we have the Lake districts that were created. And then anything that they do through their covenants, that's them.
And a bed and breakfast is permitted in the Lake District through a regular permit. It's kind of, it's their fight in a way, unfortunately, but I hope that as we show that there's a process to bring these properties into compliance with town regulations, that both sides might give a little. And that their association might see the value, letting them function if they are an approved, at least the town zoning regulations, an approved operation.
And again, important that we're enforcing the regulations.
Yep.
So,
And this comes out of the enforcement effort. My goal is ultimately to get people compliant with the town zoning regulations. And if they are essentially acting a certain way that is allowed in our zoning regulations, I'm guiding them through the process to apply for a legitimate, to be above board in their operation and current with all their permits with the town.
Thank you.
There are others on the lake that don't fit the criteria of the bed and breakfast, and that's still an enforcement effort.
So then as far as that's concerned, that's still in progress dealing with that.
Yeah.
Separate from anything the Lake districts may do through their organizations that are private. You're still continuing to deal with what you are dealing with,
Yep.
which is the enforcement on those matters.
Yep.
So still in progress.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had one issue where the mail was returned, and I was able to get an updated address and resend the letter, but they haven't come to the table yet. I'm not sure if they're going to have the ability to comply with the town's regulations, but I want to hear about what they're doing and see how I can say, well, you need to stop, or you can apply for this. We're still enforcement.
Sure, yeah, I didn't know if you had anything further, including anything about Supreme Sheds and stuff.
Yep, Supreme Sheds. So a request for voluntary compliance went out, and I included in that the minutes of the meeting from their original approval, which outlined the key issue of if they wanted to build sheds on site, they needed to come back for a modification of their special permit. Deb from the shops contacted me. She had received a letter and spoken with her tenant that and I kind of read to her the core of the minutes that said what the issue was, that they need to apply for a modification of their special permit They already have a site plan on file with a local firm that they will be modifying to include what they are currently doing in their proposal, and will be seeking a modification of their special permit, is my understanding.
That's what we had told prior. They needed to come in for a modification of special permit. So we await that.
Yep.
Will they be reverting to the original conditions of their existing permit?
I've seen the inventory decline up on the hill in the last week, so I don't know if that is their mission, but if they're, they seem, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're seeking compliance by applying. They've indicated their intention to apply for a modification of the special permit. And if they don't get their modification approved, then that is an issue that's still a matter of enforcement.
They have a special permit there. It was there prior to that, right? There, but wasn't there a special permit for the property too?
For the house, but that was voided because nothing was filed that was supposed to be filed, and they decided, not Supreme Sheds, but then it was decided by the property owners, they didn't want to pursue that. So we had to void it. They knew we were voiding it, but we had to void it by law. So
in essence, they only have a non-residential zone.
that's special.
Don't have a special.
Okay.
So
Well, that's a good point. So it's not a modification,
It's
it's
special.
it's applying for a special permit. Right? I think that's the point you're making.
I think that's what we told them when he
Yeah.
was here back in June, maybe.
Okay.
I think maybe when they originally came in June,
Uh-huh.
we thought it would be a modification because the other application hadn't been voided yet. And then, 'cause this has been going on a while. So I think after so much time, the owners had decided not to pursue building the house, which was the subject of the special permit. And since they didn't pursue it and it was not filed, it doesn't have valid anymore.
Okay, so
But
there's
that
no
happened, I
special.
believe, after this became an issue. So when we first talked about it, I believe it was intended to be a modification because we didn't think it was going to be voided.
Okay, so it has been voided.
Yes.
So I think what
Okay,
they're
so-
looking to do is to apply
It's a
for a
special
special permit.
So I was referencing the section in the minutes that said a new application will be required for the purpose of modifying the existing special permit.
let's see here.
Right. What's the date on that?
December 17th.
So you should just let them know that it's because the other application has voided.
Okay.
It'll be a new special permit and the fee will be higher.
That's when we approved it originally.
Yes, 2020
He was back here in like June.
for
This year.
modifying
uh,
his non-residential.
Correct.
But then it was brought up that we couldn't approve that because it required a special permit. So it sounds like it's just a special permit that is needed. Application.
You might not be right, but it was this.
Get this year earlier,
Yeah, because in May 4th,
maybe by the spring.
yeah, we denied the non-residential zoning permit on June 16th.
Okay, so it was June, sometimes.
Anything else from an enforcement point of view?
I haven't been able to dive deeper into the wedding venue. Delia did forward me some more email correspondence that she had going, but it's been kind of handling this Center Cemetery Road phone calls.
You
Also,
can have people call me. 'Cause
Okay.
I handle special permits and scenic road stuff.
this is requesting basically the information that's publicly available, but also the Airbnb issue still continues to monopolize a bit of time. Both sides. But working to get people towards compliance with the regs and see where it goes in each way.
Thank you. Anything from, anything else from commissioners about zoning enforcement? Budget review and bills, we have no bills to vote upon.
Question on that. That's where I screwed up earlier today. When you approve the minutes, the October 20 minutes, section 11, we passed that motion. So Amy needs to make that note.
That's easy enough to put in that the motion passed.
Right.
Yeah, it did. Yep,
Okay,
we'll just note it.
thank you.
We also have our budget list here. If anyone has any questions, otherwise we can show where we stand and also where we stand with that POCD fund. The Board of Finance, actually it was created at a town meeting back in the day, but the Board of Finance is aware we still have that there, sitting for those types of purposes. And at some point, we're gonna have to get back into the POCD first aid fund. And what question did you have, Delia, about the budget?
I was just curious what landscaping bond came in for $260. That's an absurdly low bond amount.
I believe that might have been small square footage on Crystal Pond. That was like postage stamp size parcel.
But when do we ever get a bond that's that much?
That little?
260 is usually the fee for like a modification application plus the state fee. It's usually 260 is. Bonds
That is
usually
a
like
similar,
$1,000,
that is a similar number in some of our applications. But I believe that was a particular parcel that needed, that they were seeking a CO on Crystal Pond.
What does that
And
have to do with a bond
I required a bond.
of $260?
Yeah.
I'm just curious where that amount, I mean,
That would be,
I don't actually have any
so,
involvement in it, it just seems like a.
But if that's what was done,
yeah,
that was
the
done.
building official would not release the CO. He wanted me to go out there and measure up the square footage that would, of grass that would need to grow. And he gave me the metric of 40 cents per square foot.
I had no involvement in it, I was just curious, because it's,
I
I've
know.
never had a bond that low before.
Yeah, usually the bonds that I take or release in the office are like a couple thousand. But this was, there wasn't much to measure around on this particular spot.
Okay. Anyone have anything else relative to that correspondence? I'll bring up that we did receive. This came in from the Board of Selectmen office for us to be aware of. I believe, am I correct, Jay? This is going to the town meeting, this update to the agricultural land preservation and land acquisition fund.
Yes, we sent it to this board and also open space. And I believe conservation. We just want your input, approval. The other boards, I think we also left blank the amount of acreage. I think there's a blank space there, and I think it was not so much for this group, but for open space and conservation.
So this is more about the disposition of open space land.
Yes.
being updated. And it looks like the only role this commission would have in it is per state statute, where we have to do that 8-25 review of things that we, on municipal matters that we're required to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down on. It looks like that's where planning and zoning's role would come in, which would make sense since that's what the statute kind of says. Otherwise, it sounds like from a planning and zoning point of view, there really is nothing else would be coming to this commission. So, but it's more to update that ordinance. When I read through it, it made sense to me. So we have to do an 8-24 review at any time. We do it and it gets spelled out what we're supposed to do. And I don't think we've ever denied anything like that. Required by statute. Unless there's anything else from commissioners on this, I didn't see anything that otherwise is in our purview, but certainly as townspeople at the town meeting. Yes,
I
Joe?
just wanted to ask if we have two copies of it, one with red, blue, black fonts, and the other all black.
I think
So
one is
assuming
just a
the all
clean
black
copy.
one is the completed one, but I wanted to
Yeah,
ask.
Joe, and that's the
blue
reason
text
we
was-
cleaned it up, because the original one that the Board of Selectmen dealt with had the red, and that was material that was added by the town attorney and that sort of thing. The one that's black without the red, that's like the finished product.
Sure.
But we also wanted, if you had input on any of the red or any of the other boards and commissions that you sent it to, you could certainly comment on that, so that when we've already gone through it, Board of Selectmen, so when it goes through this group and the other two groups we sent it to, if they come back and make some changes or whatever, we just want folks to be able to have input. And then at some point, it's gonna go to town meeting for approval.
Thank you, and I appreciate you asking us to see this, keeping us in the loop. Thank you. Am I correct that the revised copy we don't yet see says that all other municipal agencies, right after they do the Pledge of Allegiance, have to say some nice statement about the work planning and zoning is doing, or that's gonna go?
That's on page 3, which you haven't gotten yet.
Oh, okay.
And I wouldn't hold my breath.
I can still try.
That's true.
Yeah, can't hurt
Get that
trying.
in minutes, miss? Sorry.
If you don't try, then you'll never get.
I know.
One of these days I'll be lucky. So thank you. Does anyone have anything else relative to this proposal? Okay, that takes us then to what some people feel is the most exciting part of our meeting, Commissioner Young.
Second.
I didn't even have to ask Commissioner Blackburn. So motion by Young, second by Blackburn to adjourn.
Could you at least hesitate?
No.
You feel,
No.
you're too much, you're too quick.
We're on it.
Yeah,
We're on
boy,
it
you
here.
are.
And I just want to mention that since the days that Fred Rich
Yes.
left this commission and retired, the mantle's been taken up about who will make motions to adjourn. And I know former Commissioner Rich was very pleased about that.
Awesome.
He may not tell you, but
We aim to please.
He's frequently mentioned to me that a hell of a job is being done in his absence.
I'm
Since he's
sure.
retired, he's very pleased.
I'm sure he would. I will go through the roll for motion to adjourn. Joe Adeleto.
Aye.
Mark Blackman.
Aye.
Sid Wajek.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon. Aye. Jeff Markart.
Aye.
David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Bush. Aye. Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
And Timothy Young.
Aye.
That so passes, whatever time you have. Amy. Thank you, everybody. Leave everybody on virtual.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, about yourself.